Hi, welcome to my talk, Thinking of Quality as Developer Productivity Tool. My name is Priyanka Haldar. I am doing quality engineering from last 15 years. I currently work for a company called Oscar Health. It's a full stack insurance company, health tech insurance company. I also own my own consulting firm called the Lean Starter, and I help Series A companies to think about quality very differently. So let's come to our topic today. How can we think about quality as developer productivity tool, right? So how many of us have heard this cliche points where people say, oh, QA is a blocker, QA slows down releases, quality is QA team's responsibility. Why there is bug on production? I think 100% of us have heard this somewhere or the other in our career, right? And why does this happen? Because we are wired to think that QE is a separate process, it's a separate org. It comes and slows down the release process. We don't need it anymore sometimes, or um, how can we automate 100% of our checks so that we don't need exploratory testing anymore? But can we break that myth, and can we make QE as part of our development team? Let's think through that in this talk. So let's talk about some reality. Though we hear those cliche points that QA is a blocker or QA is a slows down releases, at least I have seen in my career, lot of the companies that I have worked in the past, they have started the whole quality engineering process very late in their life cycle, maybe after years. So when they were small, 10, 15 people, they had ad hoc processes and they were just going with unit testing. But later on, when they become big or they started growing really fast, they found, okay, they are not able to achieve any quality software at productions, and it becoming difficult to make sure that all the microservices work or all architecture has a wholesome quality, right? And 5 out of the 6 companies or have seen like critical issues in productions. Like every company has outages. Like one day before I'm recording this, LinkedIn had a very big outage where they were completely down for 1 hour, right? A big company like that, when they go out, so that points out that this is normal. Like we will have outages, but how can we minimize that, right? So can we position ourselves little differently than we have done it for ages, right? Can we make ourselves as a tool that gonna enhance developer productivity and not gonna decrease them and not gonna make them frustrated or not gonna slow them down? Okay, how can we be the developer's friend and make this process of quality engineering easy, predictable, and fun? Let's talk through that. So how, if we have to position ourselves as developer productivity enhancer, I think we have to take 4 strategy. What are those? So be a quality coach, not a quality engineer. Don't own it, but train the team such a way that they would love to do that work within a predictable manner. So to predict it, you have to find the data, right? So support your newer processes and the newer kind of practices with data. Standardize those processes. So if you think of 300 people doing a whole SDLC where if they are reading requirements, developing their tool, adding unit testing, if you can make the quality part also very predictable, like after they add unit testing, they have to go through a standard test planning and they have to make sure that the happy path is working 100%. They have to run certain automation tests. So if you standardize the process, it becomes fun to repeat it and not be confused like what we are doing. And then provide the tooling so that they are not spending lot of time exploring the cases, rather than they are just maybe able to achieve it with a touch of a button. Sometimes it will be possible, sometimes it won't be, but let's see how we can do that. Let's discuss each of this point in little details. So um, let's talk about be a QE coach, right? So whenever you are establishing a quality process, can we ask what is missing? So if that company existed for years, definitely they are doing something right. So highlight that what they are doing right, and highlight where you could bring the missing pieces. For example, suppose it's a backend team and they create API endpoints, but you see only unit testing and they do not have a established process of running API testing, maybe other than running it manual way, right, without automation. So can you introduce them to some tooling like Postman, or create a unit or API testing framework that gonna help them uh, establish a quality in a more structured way, right? How can you benchmark them from with industry standard, and then can you help them mature? Again, same questions, like if they're today only doing unit testing, help them with some tooling that they're gonna use, and now they will, every time they write an endpoint, they will make sure they're checking 400, 500, 200, 403, all those various things, and it will be a boilerplate for them. How can you make it easy? Can you create processes and tooling that is very much repeatable and predictable, and they do not have to go digging every time they're developing it? And also, one of the biggest point that I have learned is positioning ourselves as a developer productivity enhancer is that do not own the text execution, but train the team how they can execute it faster, right? If the question is, okay, one QA serializes the releases and it increases our release time, how can you not own it, but you can make sure that you are providing everything that the developer can run themselves, and they can own, and they can be the owner of their own quality. So to do that, we have to first make sure that we are supporting our processes with data, right? Do not try to boil ocean. I have seen in many cases when people start thinking about a newer quality processes, they try to test everything. So suddenly the developers are perplexed, like why we have so many bugs in our system, why we have to fix all those. So to answer those whys, help them and club them with real data. So maybe you have a very big e-commerce website, but not all features are important, right? So support them with analytics, that how can you um, make sure the top 20 most visited pages are supported, right? Have no, almost zero to none happy path bugs. How can you make sure the top 20 used features are always have 100% availability? You can do that with automations, right? Also make sure that you are testing the right browser. So if your user not using IE, you do not have to find bugs on IE or fix bugs on IE, an example, right? And there will be some features which are critical but might not have volume, and you cannot support it with data, but with product you can work it out, and you can make sure, for example, reset password, we don't want to see a lot of volume on reset password, but it's a very critical feature if your e-commerce site has a login for it, right? So always support with data, then standard, repeatable, and easy processes. So baseline maturity, tell them like how they can have a predictable way of quality engineering. For very big organizations which are governed by government, right, health tech, or finance, you have to have test case documentation, because there are authority which audit these organizations, and you have to prove that okay, certain test cases you have run before you have went to production. For that example, for those kind of example, you have to have a test management tool. But if you are a startup, you are just starting on, you can maybe have a mind map, but have a established process and predictable process and easy process, which is like not too much of a burden for the development team. Help them with test plans. So can you make it a process of your SDLC, that when a product gives you a requirement, you go ahead and you publish the test plan before developer develops it. So you are achieving the test driven development, right? Already developer knows what kind of bugs can come, so happy path bug can be mitigated, and there will be no back and forth of filing a bug or fixing a bug. So we save time, we save productivity, we save frustration. So it has worked beautifully in my career when we publish test plan lot earlier and make them developer the owner. It works beautifully. And then figure out like how you can again enhance the productivity by thinking about accessibility, thinking about browser coverage, giving input on security testing, giving input on performance and load testing. So it's not about only making sure the features are working, right? How can you make sure that we are one team and we are making sure that whatever developers are developing are making to production with all these points in mind? And second to last is quality tooling, right? So if you already establish your repeatable process, now figure out small wins where you can provide tooling to make it more easy. For example, again, if you are a big company and you have to have a test management tool, how can you integrate it with your ticketing system like Jira, so that developer doesn't have to leave Jira to read the test cases and can do it inside Jira, right? The integration part of it. How can you choose the tooling where developers are not afraid to use it and can adopt it very easily? Like I have seen for ages developer would not like to work out of Selenium framework because they feel like they're going to break someone else's test and it will be a lot of work to debug and fix it. So can you think about a tooling, or design your framework such a way that you separate out the framework part from the test case and make the developer owner of the test case so that they can easily add, record, and not be afraid of breaking the framework, right? And then another example comes to my mind is measure the unit test. So a lot of company always have like starts with unit test, but they don't know how effective that unit test is. So bring it that measure of unit test process, maybe through SonarQube or other tooling, internal tooling, where it says that okay, in any time a unit of code is written, the unit test has to be 90%. And if you're not achieving that, that means you do not have enough testing, and it has increased developer productivity a lot. Then add API contract testing. So once you have established a certain process, think deeper through the test pyramid. And can you make it a process that okay, if it is a backend team and they are creating API endpoints, they will always have a boilerplate where they will check through 400, 200, 500 and make sure it's working as expected. Also, if it is a very big microservices architecture, can you make sure they're establishing contract between each services and making it backward compatible and not breaking that contract, right? And once you have done establishing this QA tooling, I'm 200% confident that the product developer productivity will enhance and not decrease, and they won't be frustrated because these are super easy way to make sure they are producing quality work. The last one is once you are done establishing this process, track it with metrics. Adora metrics are very popular these days. So can you monthly publish a quality report where you can say how with all these processes you have reduced happy path bugs, you have reduced incident, you have reduced mttr. So if you have this easy repeatable process, we should be able to go to production and reduce the mean time to release very significantly, and it will showcase that how much you have achieved through this. So thank you. I hope with this point you will be able to make your developers happy and more productive, and thank you for listening to my talk. Bye.